Hello, my name is Kuming Vang, and today I'm going to be going over my ethnic studies final presentation. I'm going to be going over my research paper summary and my Chicano studies paper presentation and two course learning outcomes that I learned from it. And with that, let's get started. Um, so this is my ethnic studies final presentation. This is the summary. My main argument was about Asian and Latino communities in the US having different histories, but they share similar civil rights struggles. The root causes of the struggles were systemic racism, colonization, displacement, economic exploitation. They also had historical discrimination. For Asians, they were targeted by the Chinese Exclusion Act, and for Latinos, they were targeted by the Operation Wetback in 1954. I also went over policies that affected Asians and Latinos. Uh, they were both racially profiled as outsiders or others. They were denied equal access to land, citizenship, and opportunities. This helped reinforce harmful stereotypes and limited political power and job rights. Luckily, there were resistance movements like the Chicano movement, led by Cesar Chavez and Dolores uh, Hureta, and they fought for labor rights and land justice. And for Asian Americans, it was the Asian American student movement. For example, there was the 1960 San Francisco state strike. They demanded ethnic studies and educational reform, and this was led by Richard Aoki. Their shared goals and current struggles. They their shared goal is that they challenge the unfair systems that they fought for inclusion and equality. But their current struggles still are anti-Asian hate crimes, loss of temporary protected status for Latino immigrants. This is what I talked about in my research paper. And in conclusion, my research paper went over discrimination, which is still ongoing. But luckily, there's continued advocacy that is needed. For example, inclusive policies, justice, and true political representation. And for my multimedia source, here's a small clip of Trump. As long as probably forever, there's only been one frosty. Sorry. What Trump said was just the surface. It wasn't really the the truth, so as to say. The truth is that the idea that Latinos are stealing jobs, it oversimplifies deeper issues of race, class, and labor exploitations. U.S. industries rely on immigrant labor, especially in low-wage jobs like many Americans avoid. Immigration policies like the Bra Bracero program and IRCA shows how the U.S. has used and controlled immigrants' labor while denying full rights. And many Latino Americans immigrants are fleeing conditions made worse by U.S. Political and economic interferences in their home countries. Immigrants face racial stereotypes and structural barriers that makes it harder to access fair treatment, education, and protection. The real problem isn't immigrants, it's systems that exploit workers while dividing people by race and class. And now we move on to my Chicano studies summary, chapter summary. The main focus for mine was Latino American immigrants, especially indigenous groups like Mexico speakers from Oaxaca, and how U.S. immigration and immigrant policies affected them. The key terms were immigration policy controls who can enter the U.S. and immigration policy on controls on how people are treated once they're here. They are often enforced by ICE. The historical background, there were exclusionary laws like the I went over on my slides. There was the Chinese Exclusion Act, the first law to bar a group from immigrating, and the Barroso program, which brought in Mexico workers temporarily and caused family separation, and changes in the law like the 1965 Immigration Act, which removed racial quotas, increased migration from Latin America, U.S. interventions in Latin America, also pushed migration by causing instability, and the 1986 IRCA Immigration Reforms and Control Act granted amnesty to many undocumented immigrants, also increased border and workplace enforcement. The modern day impact that I talked about was recent policies favor skilled workers. Others are criminalized, especially under Trump, which means more deportations, more fear in immigrant communities. But luckily, in modern day, there's indigenous advocacy. Indigenous migrants fight for dignity, family unity, cultural preservation, language access. There's support organizations like the MICOP and the Radio Indigena, which provides translation and education for indigenous farm workers. And in conclusion, my presentation uh, talked about that we need a human rights approach to immigration, and I thought that the support freedom of movement, housing, healthcare, and labor rights, and recognize how race, class, and language shape immigrant experiences is what I concluded to my presentation. Um, Another video, immigration policies and immigrant justice was one key concept that I learned that helped me understand more about Latino policies and immigration justice. It helped me write my research paper on Latino and Asian immigrants to the U.S. and the struggles they face. Even in a modern era and in an era of Trump administration, it's only get worse for every immigration living in the U.S. And here's a video to provide. One of the course learning outcomes that I learned was students will be able to explain how race, class, and gender have shaped the ethnic experience in the U.S. Race, class, and gender shape ethnic experience in the U.S. by influencing access to opportunities and exposure to discrimination. Race has been used to justify exclusion and inequality. Class affects jobs, access, income, and living conditions, and gender adds another layer. Women of color often face both racism and sexism. Together, these factors create unique struggles, but also inspire powerful movements for justice. One of the quotes that I found I really liked was from this professor who taught at Oregon State University, and it goes like this. It reveals abundance. Ethnic studies is one of our best chances for connection. It asks us to connect despite differences, to look to the past and future, to see beyond the dominance of now. While doing so, it demands that we consider the full humanity of one another, to seek alignment where lines are drawn between us. It asks us to watch ourselves, draw lines, and then It requires us to ask where and why these lines are being drawn, and attend to his harm and who is served by them. It asks if our lines can be also bridges. And another course learning outcome was that student will be able to identify significant aspects of cultural contributions and social experiences of ethnic racial minority groups in the U.S. Ethnic and racial minority groups in the U.S. have shaped nations through cultural contributions and social activism. They've enriched American culture through language, food, art, and music. They've led movement for civil rights, labor, and justice, like the Chicano movement or the Black Lives Matter movement. Their experiences highlight both struggles and strength in shaping the U.S. history and identity. And one of the key concepts that I've taken from it was it helped me write my research paper, and it made me understand that immigration is not just about people looking for jobs. It's deeply connected to U.S. policies, racism, and labor exploitations. Learning about the programs like the Brazil program and how U.S. actions in Latin America have shaped migration helped me see how systems, not just individuals, create inequality. And I was able to generate this image using AI. And that's all for my presentation. Thank you.